Hello and welcome to Samarkand for the Uzbekistan Economic Forum 2022, where I am delighted to be joined by Mr. Jihad Azour, Director, Middle East and Central Asia Department at IMF. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The IMF recently released its regional economic outlook. What are the highlights?
Well, first of all, this year is a year of resilient recovery. Last year, countries recovered fast after COVID, but this year, despite the various shocks and headwinds, the region was able to keep a level of growth that is nearing 5% and expected the next year to remain stable. Of course, the region is diverse. You have oil exporting countries and you have oil importing countries. And you have also the war in Ukraine that everybody was expecting that it will have a huge impact on economic performance in the region. Yet, despite all these challenges, countries in the region were able to attract capital, to increase the level of trade and the level of investment, which allowed them, on one hand, to limit the impact of the shock that is nearby, and also to address that the global shock that came from increase in inflation, increase in interest rates, and the food security shock. Yet, it has created huge vulnerabilities that need to be addressed too.
How do you explain the relative resilience of the region?
I think there are several factors. One is they have started certain number of key reforms back in 2015, which allowed them, for example, to start tightening faster than what we saw in advanced economies. They have cleaned up their banking system, which also allowed them to have credibility in the financial sector. And also the war in Ukraine provided them with remittances, provided them with influx of people who are well educated and well off, who helped also increase demand. On the other hand, this crisis is biting because inflation went up, especially headline inflation, and because central banks need to increase the level of interest rate, which will have an impact on growth going forward, at a time where you don't have an external factor that could help you recover or drive your growth.
In light of the challenging global context, what are your recommendations on the policy front?
Look, it's very complex policy management, but policies are going to be very important. It's policy that will make a difference. Short-term monetary policy, keep the pace of addressing inflation through monetary policy instruments. Several countries in the region have flexible exchange rate. Use the flexibility that the system provides you in order to shield yourself from external shocks. On the fiscal side, focus the fiscal on where the most important issues are. Provide support to the low-income group in order to increase their resilience. Keep some fiscal to structural transformation that increase your productivity. But this is not enough because you have a level of growth for the next 5 years that is half of what it was in the last 2 decades. Therefore, you need to accelerate transformation. You need to reform SOEs in order to increase productivity and open bigger space for the private sector. You need to invest in the industries of the future because this is what will provide you with a high level of growth. And you need to increase your social system, education, health, and social protection, because what we are seeing is those several shocks are eroding social stability and increasing the level of poverty, which is an issue that countries need to address very quickly.
And looking ahead, what are your forecasts for 2023?
Policies to fight inflation will lead to higher level of interest rates. Liquidity will be affected, and therefore we expect slowdown to accelerate. In this context, whatever you could do in order to increase your buffers, to be much more nimble, and to project confidence. Projecting confidence is by communicating better about the challenges and the policies, by anchoring your policies in the medium term, because this is how you can provide, I would say, clarity in the world where uncertainty is dominating, and also use this moment to accelerate some of the reforms that are on the shelves or have been in the drawing board still. Accelerate their implementation, because when you do so, you improve your economic outlook for the medium term.
Finally, Mr. Azour, what about the Uzbekistan Economic Forum as a platform for change across the region?
Look, this reform is bringing more and more people at a time where the region is discovering itself as an economic zone. In the world of fragmentation, regional cooperation can compensate relatively to what you will lose because of this fragmentation. Here, where we are, it's the largest market. It's in a historical place that has roots in the history. And I would say over the last 5-6 years, they have done a set of important reforms that are promising for them and also promising to create a regional market that counts.
Mr. Azour, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.